Okay, Invisible Man. It was initially publishing in the Pearson Weekly magazine in the year 1897, and in the same year it was got published in the form of novel. Invisible Man, or the Stranger, his name is Griffin. He was a scientist who devoted himself to research into optics and who invents a way to change body's refractive index to that of a air so that it neither absorbs nor reflects light. He wanted to invent something body's refractive. Refractive means something which penetrates and goes off. For example, if you have a transparent glass in the window, okay, the sun rays from the out of your house, it penetrate through the window, and it is showering on your textbook or wherever you are sitting. Okay, so it is penetrating through the window. That is what refractive. Okay? So he wanted to invent something body refractive, which should go through the body, and should the body should not absorb something, it should not crack, it should not cut. Okay, so such thing he wanted to invent. He carries out his procedure on himself. So as for that, he experiments it on himself and renders himself invisible. So makes himself invisible, but fails in his attempt to reverse it. But he fails, to reverse back the procedure. Means to make himself visible. See, I have told you that he wanted to invent something which is like a refractive method of sun rays or the transparent glass. Okay, through the transparent window or through the transparent glass, the sun rays are penetrating and it is powering, it is showering on your textbook or on your table or in your room or in your home. Okay, but he wanted to experiment the same thing with the body. For that, he keeps himself or his body as an experiment and element. So while doing this experiment, he becomes invisible, but he fails to reverse it back. Means he fails to visible himself back. A practitioner or a random and irresponsible violence, Griffin has become an iconic character in horror fiction. Because of this, he was a practitioner of a random and irresponsible violence. Okay, Griffin has become an iconic character in horror fiction. The novel is considered influential and helped establish established well as the father of science fiction. So this science fiction or this novel made or influenced to make and to call H.G. Wells as the father of science fiction. A mysterious griffin, referred to as the star, the stranger, wears a long sleeved thick coat and gloves. Okay, so here a mysterious man, his name is Griffin. He is known as, is referred as a stranger. He wears a long sleeved, uh, means, which will cover even the fingers and the hands. Okay, so such a long sleeved shirt he wear, and a thick coat and gloves. His face is hidden entirely by bandages except for a prosthetic nose, and he wears a wide brimmed hat. I have shown you the, what to say, that the picture, how his physical body looks. This man, see, he is wearing a brimmed hat, okay, a long sleeved shirt or the coat and a thick coat, and he's wearing a thick gloves here. Okay, so and he's covering his face with some bandages to cover his prosthetic tiny nose. Later, okay, he is excessively reclusive, irascible, unfriendly, and introverted. He is out of the society's mind. Okay, he's very reclusive, very rational. Okay, very irrational in manner. He is irascible and unfriendly and introverted. Introverted means a person who talks only with himself or only be with himself. Okay, he never mingles with the society people. So this stranger being an introvert, arrives to the local inn. I have told you the meaning of the inn. Inn is what? A local hotel or a local restaurant. Fine. So he comes to the local hotel or the local inn. It was owned by Mr. and Mrs. Hall of the English village of Iping. Sorry, okay, of the English village of Iping, West Sussex, during a snowstorm. Okay, during a snowstorm, okay, he comes to the place called Iping. Okay, there he stays in the inn, which is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Hall. This Iping village is in West Sussex. West Sussex is a part of London, like how we have North India, South India, East India, and West India. In the same way, there are parts in London. Okay, Sussex, Sussex means South Sussex. Okay, so here West Sussex, North Sussex, East Sussex. So this Iping is the place in the place called West Sussex. He comes to the place during a snowstorm. Snowstorm means uh, snowy storms. Storms usually what we get into the sea, but here even on the in the earth there are snowstorms. The griffin or the invisible man, when he comes to the place called Iping, he demands to be left alone and spends most of his time in his rooms working with a set of chemicals and laboratory apparatus, only venturing out at night. What he does, he comes to the place called Iping. Okay, he takes a room in the inn of Mr. and Mrs. Hall. He spends most of the time in his room. He never comes out. Okay, and he always work. He was working with his set of chemicals and laboratory apparatus. Okay, laboratory. Lab. Okay, laboratory things. Apparatus means equipments or the instruments. Okay, so with that he was working. He was only venturing out, means he was going for the adventure ridings or to search something, okay, out only in the nights, because no one should look at him. So see, he also causes a lot of accidents in the local yards or in the local visits. He causes a lots of accidents. But when Mrs. Hall addresses this, the stranger angrily demands to put it on his bill. So when this Mrs. Hall, she becomes very angry and she charges and she blames him for this. He says that keep this all into my bill. I will pay for this. Okay, see, he comes to the place called Iping. He takes a house or a room into the inn of Mrs. and Mr. Hall. Okay, so he was an introvert. He never comes out of his room. He was always busy with his chemicals and laboratory apparatus. Only he was going out for the venture at the nights. Okay, and when he goes out, he makes some accidents. Accidents means not a vehicle accidents, like breaking something, or like breaking some glasses into pieces, etc. things. Okay, for this Mrs. Hall, she scolds him a lot, and he says her that keep everything into my bill, that he will pay that. When Griffin is staying at the inn, hundreds of strange glass bottles arrive. See, when he was staying at the inn, means when he was in the room, hundreds of strange bottles arrive. Means only you will see the capture or the visibility of the bottles, but who is carrying them? You can't see. You feel that, you assume that the bottles are flying or the bottles are flopping from one place to another place. So this was a very strange incident that was happened in the inn. While Griffin is staying at the inn, hundreds of strange glass bottles arrive. Many local townspeople believe this to be very odd. He becomes the talk of the village, with many theorizing as to his origins. So he becomes the mouth or the talk of or the subject matter of the village people to create gossips. Okay, many started theorizing. Okay, his origins. Okay, he was an alien. He comes from the other universe. This that. Okay, they have cooked many stories. Meanwhile, a mysterious burglary occurs in the village. A mysterious incident occurs in the village. So, what was that incident? Griffin is running out of money and is trying to find a way to pay for his board and lodging. Okay, so he was holding money Okay, and he was running out of money. He was trying to find a way to pay for his board and a lodging. When his landlady demands that he pay his bill and quit the premise, okay, he reveals his invisibility to her, and okay, in a fit of anger. See, because of these all incidents and all actings, this Mrs. Hall becomes, she was very fed up of these his actings. So she demands him, okay, she orders him to pay the bill and quit the inn or the room immediately. So, he knows pretty well that he has become the gossip of the whole village. So no one will never give him a room, even he pays the double amount. So now he wants to scare this Mrs. Hall. What he does, he shows his invisibility. Means he starts taking off his, all the clothes, the brim hat, the spectacle, and the cigarette, the gloves, everything. She can see only the clothes, but how about the physical body? When he takes off his spectacles, there should be eyes, but there are no eyes. When he takes off his hat, there should be head, but there is no head. Okay, so like way he scares him. Okay, see, he reveals his invisibility to her in a fit of anger. An attempt to apprehend the stranger by police officer Jaffer is thwarted when he undressed to take advantage of his invisibility. Fights of his would be captured and flees to the south downs. So, many have given complaint, and the police officer Jaffer comes. He got to know the situation. So, when he started to catch him, to catch that invisible person or this griffin, he started, when he wears everything from top to bottom, he is visible to everybody. Okay, so everyone can catch him, at least his jacket or coat, everything. But when this Jaffer had come to arrest him, okay, to imprison him to the prison or to send him to the jail, this Jaffer was running behind, and he was chasing this griffin. This griffin, in order to make himself invisible, he started, removing off. He was started taking off. He was started undressing himself. He, removed cap from his head. Okay, so the police officer cannot touch his head, and not even touch, he cannot see his head. And he started throw off his coat, okay, and some gloves, eyes, sorry, not eyes, the spectacles, everything. Okay, so see here, you can see an attempt to apprehend the stranger by police officer Jaffer is thwarted when he undresses to take advantage of his invisibility. He fights off his would-be captors and flees of South Downs. Their Griffin sources a tramp, Thomas Marvel, into becoming his assistant. So Griffin becomes the assistant of, he leaves the place Iping, and from then he goes to the place called Thomas, the Griffin, he goes to the place called some other place. There he becomes an assistant of Thomas Marvel. Then, with Marvel, he returns to the village to recover three notebooks that contains record of his experiments. While leaving the village, I think he has forgotten his important things or the scientific elements or the chemical reaction made, these formulas noted book into the Iping village. So, along with the help of this Thomas Marvel, he comes back to the village of Iping to collect that book, three books. Marvel attempts to betray the invisible man who threatens to kill him. Okay, Marvel escapes to the seaside town of Port Birdcove, pursued to a local inn by the invisible man who is shot by one of the bar patrons. See, Marvel escapes to the seaside town of Burdock. See, to the Iping village, the invisible man Griffin and Thomas Marvel, they have come together to collect the book or the notes. But while going back, he cheats. This Thomas Marvel cheats Griffin, okay, or the strange man, and he escapes from his companionship. So he goes to the seaside town. Okay, on the seaside there was a town called Port Burdock. Okay, there Thomas Marvel goes, and pursued a local inn by the invisible man, who is shot by one of the bar patrons. Okay, so here there he takes a room on a rent. Okay, he pursued it to a local inn by the invisible man. Okay, so who is shot by one of the bar patrons. The invisible man takes shelter in a nearby house that turns out to belong to Dr. Kemp, a farmer acquaintance from the medical school. And now, with a great tense, here Griffin doesn't understand where this Thomas Marvel went, because without that books he cannot make any experiment, because all the notes have written in the same book. So what he does, he takes a room on the basis of rent in the house of Dr. Kemp. This Dr. Kemp, he was very much acquainted with these medicines. Why? Because Dr. Kemp was a former acquaintance, means he was former assistant from the medical school. To Kemp, he reveals his true identity. Okay, to Kemp, this invisible man, he reveals his true identity. Griffin is an albino former medical student who left medicine to devote himself to optics. Okay, so he says that Griffin is an albino. Okay, it is a course of medicine, an albino former medical student, and he left learning medicine because he wanted to devote himself for optics, as I have told you about the science. Okay, Griffin tells Camp the story of how he invented chemicals capable of rendering bodies invisible. Okay, bodies invisible, which he first tried on a cat, then on himself. When he returned down the boarding house he was staying in to cover his tracks, found himself ill-equipped to survive in the open. Eventually, stole some clothing from the theatrical supply shop on Drury Lane, and then headed to Iping to attempt to reserve the invisibility. So to Kant, he explains all the real color, okay, or the real life of himself. What he says, Griffin tells to Kant the story of how he invented the chemicals capable of rendering bodies invisible. Griffin says that he has invented some, chemicals which makes man invisible, and in order to experiment it, he uses his own body, which he tried on a cat. First, initially he experiments on a cat, but then and after that on himself he becomes invisible. And he how he burned down the boarding house he was staying in the cover of his tracks. Okay, uh, and when he was becoming invisible, he has burned down the boarding house and where he was staying. Uh, Staying into a cover of his tracks. Okay, and he found himself ill-equipped to survive in the open. When the whole building was burnt out, he doesn't have any equipments to survive there. Okay, and he has become ill-equipped. And eventually, what he does, he steals some coats or some necessary wearing things from one of the theatrical supply shop, that is Drury Lane. And then after that, by taking these all things, he goes to the place called Iping. Okay, and to Iping, he attempts to reverse the invisibility. Having been driven somewhat unhinged by the procedure and his experiences, he now imagines that he can make Camp his secret confederate, describing a plan to use his invisibility to terrorize the nation. Kemp has already denounced Griffin to the local authorities led by Port Burdock's chief of police, Colonel Addy, and is waiting for help to arrive as he listens to his wild proposal. So here, when Invisible Man was explaining his real story, he asked Kemp, okay, Invisible Man asked Kemp to be his confederate or secret confederate, means secret assistant, to describe a plan to use his invisibility to terrorize the nation, to scare the nation. Okay, he asked the help of Kemp to be with him. But Kemp already he has denounced, okay, Griffin to the local authorities. He has already told about the Kemp to the local authorities, which is led by Fort Burdock's chief police. and Colonel Addy and his they all are waiting for the help to arrive as he listens to this wild proposal. When Addy, his men arrived at the Kemp's house, Griffin fights his way out and the next day leaves a note announcing that Kemp himself will be the first man to be killed in the reign of terror. Okay, so what he was asking to the camp, and he was asking the help of camp, okay, that we both can make somebody scared, and we can be terrors to the nation, to terrorize, to scare them. We can act like invisibles. Okay, so here when he got to know that this camp is a cheater, because he is when this Griffin comes to know that Camp is going to keep his hands or imprison him, he leaves a note and also the house saying that Kemp will be the first man or the first person to be killed in the reign of terror. Kemp, a cool headed character, tries to organize a plan to use himself as a bait to trap the invisible man. But a note that he sends is stolen from his servant by Griffin. During the chase, the invisible Griffin arms himself with an iron bar and kills the purse. Griffin shoots Addy, then breaks into the Kemp's house. Addy's constable fend him off and Kemp bolts for the town, where the local citizen come to his aid. Still obsessed with killing Kemp, Griffin nearly strangles the doctor, but he is concerned seized and savagely beaten by the enraged mob. His last word, a desperate cry for mercy, despite Griffin's murderous action, Camp urges the mob. Griffin shoot Addy and breaks into Camp's house. Okay, at the end, there was a treatment for Dr. Camp and also the person who was injured by him. And now this this invisible man, that is this Griffin, has become invisible. So Griffin shoots Addy, okay, a police officer, a colonel, okay. He shoots Addy and then he breaks into the Camp's house. Addy's constable fend him off and Camp bolts for the town, where the local citizenry come to his aid. Still obsessed killing Camp, Griffin nearly strangeless the doctor, but he is concerned, seized and savagely beaten by enraged mob. His last words, a desperate cry for mercy. Despite Griffin's murderous actions, Kemp urges the mob to stand away and tries to save the life of his assailant, though unsuccessfully. The invisible man's battered body gradually becomes visible and he dies. Pitiable in the stillness of death, a local policeman shouts to have someone cover Griffin's face with a sheet. In the epilogue, it is revealed that Thomas Marvel, was secretly kept Griffin's note and with the help of the stolen money has now become a successful business owner running the Invisible Man in. See, he has this Thomas Marvel who along with this Griffin, he went to Iping in order to collect his lost notes. He, steals those notes and he started he started staying at the inn of the seaside. Okay, there after the death of Invisible Man, he comes out and he starts writing an inn on the name of Invisible Man. Okay, he becomes a successful business owner running the Invisible Man Inn. However, when not returning his in, Marvel sits his office trying to disper the notes in the hopes of one day recreating Griffin's work. So here, this Thomas Marvel was reading and researching and also deeply going into the works of Griffin very much. He was not understanding anything, but every day he was having keeping a hope that one day he can recreate Griffin's work, because several pages were accidentally washed clean during Marvel's chase of Griffin, and the remaining notes are coded in Greek and Latin. And Marvel has no comprehension of even the basic mathematical symbol of he sees the notes. he is completely incapable of understanding them. So this is the summary of the play, is the novel, that is Invisible Man. Okay, just a second. Okay, so have you understood the summary? At the end, he dies. Okay, at the end, he dies. And how he dies, what are the mistakes or the accidents he makes, and his friendship with Thomas Marvel, how he cheats them, and after that, how he approaches Dr. Kemp, how he trusts him, but even also he cheats. Everything has been detailedly explained in the novel. And from the next class onwards, detailed wise summary, we shall discuss a detailed wise summary. Okay, because today I have given you the short summary of the novel, let you know what exactly we are dealing with. Because of that, I have explained you the summary. Do you have any difficulty into understanding the summary?
No, ma'am.
Okay, how was the summary? Have you followed it? Yes, may I know? Only Vasuki has followed it. Hmm?